Introduction to Vectors. In math, a scalar is a quantity that requires only a number to describe. An example would be speed. If I wanted to talk about a 20 mile per hour wind, I only need the number 20 to describe it. On the other hand, a vector is a quantity that requires both a number and a direction. An example would be velocity. And so maybe now I have a 20 mile per hour south wind. In other words, a wind coming from the south. Notice that I have both a number, the 20, for the 20 miles an hour, as well as a direction. It's coming from the south, meaning it's heading toward the north. Well, how would I represent a vector quantity, something that has to have both a number and a direction? The answer is we use an arrow in the xy plane. Let me go ahead and draw on this velocity vector. It would look something like this. This spot here would be right at 20. Notice that this arrow has two important characteristics. It has a length, or sometimes called magnitude. That takes care of the number part, the 20. It's clearly 20 units long. But it also points in a certain direction. It's pointing here toward the north because this was a south wind, a wind coming from the south. The arrow does not mean that this continues on forever. It's not like a line. This is a fixed length arrow. The arrow symbol simply indicates direction. By the way, the point where the vector starts is called the initial point, and the point where the vector stops is called the terminal point. This particular vector that I drew is called a position vector. A position vector is a vector whose initial point is 0, 0. In other words, the vector starts at the origin. We will see there are some advantages to position vectors. How do we name a vector? Well, it depends on whether we are typing or writing. If we're typing, then we use a bolded letter. So I'll call my wind vector vector W. Again, typing, I simply bold it. If I'm writing it, then I put the W with this little arrow symbol on top. So that would also be a way of writing vector W. Sometimes we just want to talk about the magnitude of the vector, the length of it. And in that situation, we use vertical bars around the vector name. So this means the length of vector W, which would of course be 20. You may also see double bars. Sometimes that notation is used, and that simply refers to the same thing. What you cannot write is this. A vector is not a number. W with the little arrow symbol on it refers to the entire arrow, not merely the length. So if you want to talk about the length, you have to use the vertical bars. And then the direction angle of a position vector refers to the angle from the positive x-axis to the vector. For our wind vector, the direction angle would be this angle from the positive x-axis toward our vector. We'll call the direction angle theta, and it's obvious in this example that theta is just 90 degrees. We will always measure our direction angles in a positive direction, and we won't rotate around more than once, which means always our direction angles will be between 0 degrees and 360 degrees. Let's consider one other example. Here's vector V. I know it's a vector because I can see that V is in boldface. Vector V is a 30 mile per hour northeast wind. Here's north, here's east. This means a wind coming from the northeast. If I want to start it at 0, 0, that means I would be drawing it here. Northeast wind means it's heading toward the southwest. So here's vector V. What can we say about it? What if I wanted to know the magnitude of vector v? Well, that just refers to its length. The length is the number portion of the vector, and so that would simply be 30 units long. The direction angle, theta, is the angle from the positive x-axis rotating around counterclockwise in a positive direction until the vector is reached. It's always going to be an angle between 0 and 360. Well, if the vector is headed in a perfectly southwest direction, then this must be 45 degrees, which means the entire angle there, the entire theta, would be 180 plus 45 degrees for a total of 225 degrees. Every vector then can be drawn as an arrow in the xy plane. It has a magnitude or length, and it has a direction angle. Thanks for watching.